Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about ignorance, which in America is rife everywhere you look. Three particular pieces of ignorance, in fact. The first deals with a bill that is currently in Congress that would eliminate gathering economic data from the census that is taken in the U.S., the latest one with the 2010 census. And you might be thinking, well, why would you want to eliminate that data? That data helps us figure things out like which segments of the population are doing better economically, unemployment stats, things like that. So what politician in their right mind would eliminate that data? I want you to pause for a second. And into whose hands would it play if the American people didn't have a grasp of their economic future and their economic past? Which party that supports one particular group above all the others would benefit the most from that particular type of a bill? And the people that would benefit the most from that would be the one percenters. It is in their best interest to not only make sure they get all the money, but making sure that everyone else in the nation doesn't know how much money there is, what financial situation that they are in, which will make the whole idea easier to get more of the nation's wealth into the pockets of the 1%. Just like shifting the little cups around on that table. Where's the P? Where's the P? It's all a game. Except the P here is our future. And the future of all Americans. Not just the 1%ers, but all of us. And remember, the 1%ers, they didn't create that wealth. We did. We created that wealth. The 1%ers are just parasites upon the rest of us. And an organism can survive a certain number of parasites for a certain period of time. But if parasites become too dangerous, you have to get rid of them. Maybe it's time we go see a doctor. Well, that is if you can afford it. The second piece of information, a little example of ignorance, is Representative Lamar Smith from Texas, Republican. He is a global warming denier, even though our weather patterns in America are getting more and more messed up year after year. For example, it snowed at my mother's house last Saturday. This coming Saturday, it may hit 95. Weather patterns are weird here for a reason. It's because we're mucking with the environment. And this guy doesn't believe that. And yet, he's the head of the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. And not only does he not understand, not use, and not want to use the scientific method when it comes to areas of science, but he wants to remove peer-reviewed methods of deciding which programs get funded at the National Science Foundation. Okay? He wants to make sure that the only decisions about which things get funded are political decisions, not peer reviewing of the scientific material itself. Now, for those of you that don't understand what peer reviewing means, whether it's in a publication or in this particular situation, a grant funding, it means that someone poses an idea, they gather all the information for their scientific concept, they put it into an article or a paper, and then they put the paper out into the world, and usually in a peer-reviewed publication of some variety. And then their peers, the people who are also in the same particular field as them, or tangentially related fields, because science can be fairly broad, get to read the paper, they get to take it out, drive it around, kick the tires, and see, does this thing actually function? And if it does, well, more people use the data and the information. And if it's a good particular scientific idea, eventually, it may well become adopted and become the standard model for that particular field of science. But a lot of the times, the science doesn't hold up. People look at it and say, hey, this thing is a piece of garbage. It doesn't do anything what the author says it does. It gets tossed by the wayside into the dustbin of history, and we move on to the next piece of peer-reviewed publication. That's how it works. People want to check it and try it. So when someone says, I've got this great new invention, it does cool things, but they won't tell you how, they're full of bull. Yet, the good representative here wants to have that kind of concept put into the funding for things for our national science programs. He wants to put funding into science research that is based purely on politics, which makes me think of Lamarckian evolutionary theory in the Soviet era in Russia. Lamarck said that if an animal strives for something, for example, a short-necked giraffe really wants those leaves way up there, but they can't. I want those leaves, but they can't reach the leaves because they have a dinky little neck. Their offspring will have longer necks because they strove for those top leaves, which is total and absolute bull, if anyone has any idea of how evolutionary theory actually works. But it was a very popular opinion to the leadership of the Soviet Union. They liked the idea that if a good Soviet citizen strove to be the perfect socialist human, that the next generation would be better socialist people. And the generation after that would finally achieve the ultimate goal of all of us becoming socialist men. Except their ideas were warped to begin with, and that's not how science works or evolution. But that's an example of how a political position fueled bad science. Now, I'm just saying, this wasn't an idea that just got fueled. This was actually applied in the real world. And it destroyed human lives because they were trying to base planting cycles and planting different kinds of grains and things to grow in Russia based off Lamarckian evolutionary theory. And guess what? Those grain crops didn't do well. They cost human lives. People starved. Because politics came before science. And that's what the good representative here in the U.S. is trying to do. And I apologize for this, but the man's an idiot, and this policy is stupid. And the last example is about North Carolina. Now, North Carolina is a state that wants to just ignore global warming data as far as the rising sea levels because it would endanger their coastal marketing. It would mean that people wouldn't want to live on the coast. For good reason. If the ocean is rising, coastal property is going to become very problematic unless you really like to have a dolphin in your living room. So, they just want to ignore that. No, it's not rising. It's not rising. They want to bury their head in the sand and ignore it because politically it makes the easiest situation for all the politicians. Because as long as they ignore it, it will be a problem that happens to the next guy who gets elected after me. I won't have to deal with it. Well, someone put up a bill that dealt with renewable energy sources and how they're funded and such in North Carolina. And it was knocked down. He put the bill up. It went to a committee. The committee went like 18-15 or something like that, or 18-13. Kicked it out. Gone. You're voted out. Well, the guy wasn't happy with that. So he put the bill in as the second time, which I don't think should be allowed. There should be a moratorium between cycles of some variety. I think that would be reasonable. Like, you can only submit something once a year or something like that. But that's just me. So he put the thing in there, and they did a voice count, and before the voice count could be counted, the guy declared victory and walked away. Boom! I won. That's not democracy. And I'm not going to argue about whether we live in a democracy or a republic here. The concept that people voted, the votes were not allowed to be counted. And someone just declared victory. As the link says, and I'm going to link here, that's how banana republics function, which is a concept that the United States of America helped create, by the way. Banana republics exist because we helped create them. So that's just astounding. But here you go, folks. Lots of ignorance, all in one nice, big, disgusting, smelly package. Welcome to politics in America, folks. I hope you wore a gas mask.